In today's cyberwork hack, Paul Giorgi of XM Cyber, a man who told me that his favorite way to learn new skills is to break things and then put them back together, walked me through the basics of setting up your own cybersecurity practice lab at home for not too much money. But watch out, because he said once you start, your excitement about hands-on practice and buying old servers on eBay can get overwhelming. And if that's not a cyberwork hack, I don't know what is. Hello and welcome to Cyberwork Hacks, a new series of short videos from Infosec. The purpose is to give you quick, clear, and actionable answers to the questions that you have about learning cybersecurity. So today's guest is Paul Giorgi of XM Cyber. We recently had him on our main Cyberwork feed and had a very good conversation about some of the more unusual attack vectors of 2022. And we got to talking about setting up a home lab so that you can practice, cybersecurity concepts in your own time and so forth. And so I thought I'd keep Paul on for a few more minutes here, and we could sort of walk through some of the particulars of this because he was just so passionate and excited about it. So welcome back, Paul. Thanks for joining us here.
Yeah, no problem, Chris.
So Paul, what are some of the main tasks that you can do to practice with a sort of cybersecurity lab at home? Like how does that help you sort of move beyond reading the books or just watching YouTube videos? Like what are the sort of like nuts and bolts things that you can do with a home lab?
Yeah, I feel, especially in the sales engineering world, there is a change in your voice when I could tell somebody's talking authoritatively on a subject. So if I read a book or I watch a YouTube video about somebody else doing something, there's one way I'm going to talk about it. I'll say they, and I'll say like, you can, but when I have done it, I speak differently and I could say more confidently, like, this is what you'll see and this is how it's done, more than I would say if I didn't do that. So I think fundamentally, if you are trying to solve a problem of which you have not seen yourself, or even understand like the fundamental components of, you're going to have a really hard time resonating with the appropriate person. Like think about Active Directory, for example. If you have never set up Active Directory or maintained an Active Directory environment by yourself or in your home lab, you're probably not going to really understand the struggles that the typical identity guy or Active Directory admin or engineer architect has to go through. So just from scratch, set up a server. It doesn't need to be a really high-powered server. You can find something cheap. I loved running things in VMs because I'm notorious for doing things the exact wrong way, and so I create little snapshots along the way. It's kind of like playing a video game. When you make a little bit of an accomplishment, save the progress, and make a little bit more accomplishment, save the progress. That way, when you realize at the end where you're like, I screwed up, not just the last step, but I screwed up 10 steps ago, I can then revert back to it. So I guess going back to the main point is having a good hands-on experience and being familiar with what people are dealing with from a hands-on perspective is going to set you apart than anybody with book knowledge or whatever training session they've gone through. So however you can do that, get that done. There's so much free solutions out there. I mean, I think of everything from the hackable components where, hey, I want to find a hackable system that allows me to hack something, or there's so many scripts that I can leverage to within VMware and Power CLI. I could press a button and within 15 minutes, I can have a huge domain environment for me to play with, and I can break things and try to hack things and compromise things. And I went through my OSCP certification a few years ago. And one of my favorite things about it is during the OSCP certification is you have access to this lab. And most of the time, all the labs that I had played with, I had set them up. So I didn't know really how, or I wasn't aware how they were configured. So it took a little bit of time kind of breaking them, but you still had the ability to revert the snapshot. So as soon as you break things in something, I could still go, oh, whoops, I broke it. Let's go ahead and revert it. So I love just having that ability.
Yeah, and that also gives you the sort of blank check to make really big swings when you're trying to solve something, because you know that, you're not just, that's not the end of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And having a lab is a great resource just to fall back on for reference. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm in at the conversation with a customer. I mean, we were just talking about dumping credentials out of LSAS. I was just talking with a customer who didn't think that was possible. And I was like, hang on, give me a minute. On the same Zoom session, I jumped over my home lab. I'm like, let's just do this. All right, we're going to interactively log in. Now there's a credential sitting in cached in LSASS. Now let me just grab a tool. I just used, I think I used Mimikatz for that one. I just used Mimikatz, ran it, and then, hey, look at the clear text password just sitting right there. I didn't have to break it. I didn't have to sniff it. I didn't have to do any sort of like weird stuff that he thought was necessary for it. It's just if that password's sitting in a credential, and having that sitting there as a lab really allowed me to kind of differentiate myself, not only like, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about, but wow, that was great. Thank you for showing that to me. And then from that point on, I had a different level of interaction with that customer, because like, okay, not only do I need to trust what he's saying to me now, but he has that hands-on familiarity with doing things like that maybe I don't necessarily have.
Okay, so is this something that you could create at home? So like I'm trying to think, like if we're talking like a team that maybe has a confined living space or lives with their parents, is this something that you could do on the kitchen table, or is this something that really needs like its own space? What are the space and resource requirements to setting up something like this?
Yeah, so it doesn't take much. There's a few different ways you can do it. I mean, we have so many more options now than we did 20 years ago.
Right.
Let's say that you just want a server. Like I used to use OVH all the time. They do dedicated server hosting. I would pay, I think it was like $50 a month, and I would have a dedicated server with a gig internet connection that I had full KVM access to, and I would load up VMware on it, and I would have my own hypervisor. I could remote into it externally. So you don't need to have a lot or even space to store it. You have all of these cloud options that we really didn't have 20 years ago. So look at that. Azure and GCP and AWS often will have free credits for a certain period of time, or they're free tiers. So if you want to use $300 worth of just playing within GCP, sign up for Google and they'll give you several $100s worth of just getting familiar. They have the side benefit of now you having familiarity with GCP and potentially liking it so much that you keep it in there, but you have the $300 coupon. So if you want to play around with something for a little bit, spin up some VMs and take advantage of those opportunities. I've gone through all of those, but I still like my hands-on stuff. I still feel like for me to do what I would want to do in lab environments like that are hosted in the cloud, it would just be too cost prohibitive. So in my basement, I've got a bunch of different servers that I just buy off of eBay. I started with like Intel NUCs, really cheap, small, low power. And from there, it just expanded. Now I've got a whole bunch of Dell R730s running vSAN, and I've got NASs and SANs. And so just be careful, because it is something that gets addictive when you start playing around with it. But start small, take advantage of free opportunities. Look on eBay and Craigslist for a cheap, low power server like an Intel NUC that you can get for maybe $100, $200. The biggest thing to keep that you're going to run into is disk I/O and memory. Once you start getting 10 VMs spun up on a single server, even if you only give 4 gigs of memory per each one of those, that's 40 gigs of that's a lot of memory that you're getting into, a lot of disk I/O that you're going to require. So try to get as much memory and as much disk I/O as you can on whatever it is, because if you get just some single solid state disk, you're only going to get a couple of VMs running on that at the same time. And if you get a machine that only has maybe 16 or 32 gigs of memory, you're only going to run 1 or 2 VMs, and that's probably not as beneficial as something with a 128.
Well, good. Next question was the specific sort of numbers from a money standpoint. What would be a bare bones essential pieces of hardware and software you would need to get set up on a lab like this? Is this something that you could build for the price of a pizza, or more of a used car, or somewhere in between?
So if I were starting from scratch, like I'm just jumping into cybersecurity, I would literally just buy an Intel NUC, max it out. I think the Intel NUCs, you can get one with 64 gigs of memory, and you could put a couple of SSD drives in it. I have the little square ones with the i7 processor in it, and then I also had the Intel Skull Canyon, I think is what they call it, which is like more of the gamer one. The only reason why I went with that had the faster processor. But for between like $300 to $400, you can get one of these little boxes, and they're quiet. They don't consume a lot of memory. Super easy to set up. They're really common, so you'll see walkthrough guides of people doing even really complex stuff with hypervisors and virtualization on them. So if you want to even get into something like vSAN, figure out how to do nested hypervisors on a single Intel NUC, and then you could do like mocking up vSAN where you have a 3-node vSAN cluster, but it's still just running off of a single Intel NUC. So there's a lot of fun stuff that you can do with just a little device that shouldn't cost you any more than $400. From there, like I said, it's a slippery slope. You'll probably buy at least one more Intel NUC, and then eventually probably buy a server or two. But from a starting point, I don't think it is a cost of a pizza or even necessarily a used car. Somewhere in between.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So without showing a physical walkthrough here, what are the basic steps to get all of this hardware and software connected and running smoothly? And once you've got, your security lab at home set up, can you suggest like a first project that you could use to get your hands dirty?
Yeah. So when you're starting from setup, let's just go to the example of the Intel NUC. You've just got one Intel NUC. Load up whatever your favorite hypervisor is. If you're not familiar with any of them, Proxmox is really easy. It's open source and free, so you don't have to worry about licensing stuff. I prefer VMware, vSphere, or ESXi. My only concern is the whole Broadcom thing. What's going to happen with VMware? So I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But at least from my standpoint, I've really been focusing on VMware as my hypervisor of choice, even though I've been trying to learn a few others just as a contingency plan. Once you have that set up, create templates. There are easy ways to say, okay, I've got my evaluation copy that I downloaded from Microsoft of Windows Server, and then I've got my Windows 10 machine, and then find a place where you can store your CD images, your ISOs. So store the ISOs, build a couple of templates, and then what's great about templates is I can right click and just say deploy from template, and within seconds I've got a fresh new VM that I can break to my heart's content, knowing that I can just delete it right away, or if things work out well, snapshot it and then use it for reference later. But that's really kind of the fundamentals of my home security lab, or any real security lab, is loading up a hypervisor, find a place to stash your ISOs and all of your other bootable media, and then find a place to keep your templates. So create a couple of templates. It's going to save you a ton of time instead of having to install Windows over and over and over again. Template, and then you can spin off of those really quick. What you do with it from there is really, you can get into a lot of different stuff. I actually have a breaking point device. It's an Ixia device. It's traffic simulation. So if I stand up a firewall or some sort of IPS or malware detection, I can run through this tool that allows me to generate either like benign traffic that mimics things like an enterprise environment, or I could play through different scenarios like, hey, I want to look like what malicious traffic looks like. And then I could have different ways to play with that data as it's flowing through. And but that's more like kind of once you build out those fundamental things, then you can start playing with other things, including like traffic simulation.
That's amazing. All right. Well, Paul Giorgi, thank you very much for the cyber work hack here. Where can our listeners and viewers find out more about you and your company, XM Cyber?
Yeah, so xmcyber.com is our website. We're involved in pretty much all of the major shows. So if you're walking around RSA or Black Hat or whatever the conferences you're at, you're probably going to be able to find some sort of presence with us there. But we do have, we're a global organization and really focused on teaching organizations what attack path management is, and helping them learn how to prioritize and address risks and remediate them appropriately.
Awesome. Paul Giorgi, thank you again for your time and insights today.
Yeah, no problem.
And thank you all for watching this episode of Cyberwork Hacks. This is the start of an ongoing series of videos that we're getting going in 2023, and we're going to have lots more to come, so make sure to subscribe and check back. Until then, we'll see you soon. Take care. Hey, if you're worried about choosing the right cybersecurity career, click here to see the 12 most in-demand cybersecurity roles. I asked experts working in the field how to get hired and how to do the work of these security roles so you can choose your study with confidence. I'll see you there.